folks, what's going on? Welcome to the Monday Night Live. Tonight we're going to be talking about metabolic health and the mitochondria in particular, talking a little bit more about that and talking a little bit more so in a well-rounded fashion about different diet, training, and lifestyle habits that you can do to improve mitochondrial function. Right? So this right here, the reason why I'm talking about this is because this is when it comes to chronic illness reversal, when it comes to gaining muscle mass, dropping body fat, sleeping better, slowing down the aging process, whatever the case may be, understanding your mitochondrial health and how to improve it is probably not it might actually be the most important thing. I'm not going to say it's the most important thing, but quite possibly it is definitely in the top three, right? Because then we talk about things like DNA and how to protect your actual DNA. And protecting your DNA is probably number one because your DNA pretty much is, that is the code that makes you who you are, that makes your cells what they are. Your DNA is what tells, it's basically the directions for protein synthesis, right? I mean, without protein synthesis, you can't create any of your cells or the enzymes or neurotransmitters that power them. All right, well, let me back off the wonkiness. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put a 1 in the chat if y'all hear me clearly. And, tune in, sound off. Where y'all tuning in from? How y'all feeling today? All right, let's get some 1s in the chat here. How's everybody doing? All right, so hold on. Look at that. The boss lady is first in line. What's going on? Good to see you in here. All right, shalom. What's going on? Big shout out to you tuning in from Dallas, Texas. That's right, Miss Cali girl. What's going on? Hey, this live is about to be fire. Absolutely. This actually might be really pertinent to. Well, it is to everybody, but this definitely, you're going to want to tune into this one. That's right. Go ahead and hit that like button. That's right. Do what the lady says. Denise, what's going on? Big shout out to you, crushing it as usual on a daily basis. The human personification of consistency. Tyler T, back in the stream again. Welcome back, brother. Good to see you in here. Raymond, what's going on? Good to see you back in here. Greetings from Pacific Northwest Seattle area. Looking forward to another evening with the raw professor spitting real raw talk. Always appreciate it. This time and knowledge you give us, Remsen. Well, I appreciate that. The big and kind words. It's very encouraging. I appreciate that. Idri, what's going on, girl? Good to see you back in here tuning in. We got some 1s in the chat, so everybody hears me nice and clearly. Andy, big shout out to you. Oh, Amy, excuse me. Tuning in from Maryland, putting the 1s in the chat. Tyler T, tuning in from Baton Rouge, I would assume by way of LA. All right, there you go. All right, Hemi Bell, tuning in from Sacramento. Mama Duke's in the chat, good to see you in here. Idri, tuning in from Houston. Oh, whoa, Cali girl tuning in from Panama. There we go. All right, that's what I'm talking about. She's a worldly lady. Miss Denise Stone tuning in from Florida. All right, everybody's here tonight, and folks are still streaming in, catching in here. Let's go over to the Instagram, right? Because I'm live on Instagram right now and TikTok. So we triple casting tonight. So we got folks tuning in too on Instagram, rolling in. We got New York in the house. We got Winchester, Virginia, North Carolina. There we go. We got Atlanta's in the building here. San Diego. There we go. We got Virginia. All right. A couple folks from Virginia and New York, Seattle, North Carolina. All right. Look at that. A lot of North Carolina and Seattle, New York folks. A lot of Floridians and whatnot tuning in. I feel y'all. And I got to flip over. Hopefully I'm be able to see the comments in the TikTok section. But it appears I'm not. But I think I have a fix for that. So what I'm going to do, I got to give y'all big By the way, those who are tuning in on TikTok and Instagram, hit the double tap the screen to like the stream. That's what I meant to say. Double tap the screen to like the stream. All right, y'all. Hold on. I'm gonna try to tune in and see if I can do this here. All right. Let me see if I can see these comments here on the TikTok. Hold on. Let's see. Why's the screen blank over here on TikTok? Oh, there we go. Now we see. All right, there we go. All right, we got Lewis tuning in over on TikTok. I see you. There we go, my man. Look, now I see y'all. I see the comments popping up on TikTok. I had to pull it up in the browser. I had to get creative with it. I'm like, oh, you see. All right. All right. So I'm gonna be watching closely afterwards. I'm not gonna really be doing all of that right now. Because I got some stuff to say. So let me get into it tonight. Let me get into it. So first off, we got to really understand your mitochondria is basically the energy producing factories of your cells, right? Scientifically, these are known as organelles. Vital infrastructure of your cells. Basically, your cells, they breathe in a way, right? Your cells go through this respiration process, right? This metabolic cycle. And your body, your cells, they take glucose and they convert that glucose into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, right? And your body's cells use oxygen, they use glucose, they use other important nutrients, B vitamins and such, right? And your mitochondria basically works to metabolize these things and produce that energy. And so there's this cycle, right? ATP, ADP, ATP, ADP, round and round we go, right? Now, ideally, this cycle, this respiration cycle, is supposed to flow seamlessly. Your cells have to have a constant energy source. If there is an interruption or an inhibition, right, of that respiration process, right, that metabolic process inside your cells, if your mitochondria, if there's a hitch in the functionality of the mitochondria in your cells, there's a reduction in the mitochondria of those cells. Those cells then become prone or susceptible to oxidation. Oxidation leads to the deterioration and death of the cells, right? So that cycle, that respiration cycle, cannot be inhibited. Okay, if that happens, the cells go through a form of suffocation, right? Asphyxiation, basically, right? So in the grand scheme of things, whether you feel, let's take joint pain actually, right? Let's say your hands, right? Let's say your wrist, your fingers, you have arthritis in your hands, your feet, knees, lower back, that kind of thing. There's a significant amount of oxidative stress that is going on within that connective tissue, and that oxidative stress is causing your immune system to respond, and that response is what we call inflammation. And you feel that response, and it could feel like swelling, pain, soreness, sharp pains, things like this, stiffness, that type of thing. So even joint pain in and of itself is really a metabolic problem. Okay. Diverticulitis, Crohn's, colitis, right? Ulcers, right? This inflammation of the gut is also a metabolic issue. Okay. The loss of muscle mass, right? The reduction in lean mass, right? Organ damage to your kidneys, damage to your liver, damage to your heart. Metabolic issues, right? There's a hitch in the respiration process of the cells in those organs that leads to oxidative damage. That oxidative damage leads to oxidative stress It ramps up, leading into greater levels of inflammation, which makes us feel miserable. When this interruption or inhibition in mitochondrial function is sustained in a chronic fashion, this leads to things like brain fog, poor sleep quality, depression, anxiety, body fat gain, weakness, fatigue, loss of muscle mass, even to the point of sarcopenia, which is a significant reduction in lean mass, right? Significant losses in lean mass sustained over a long duration of time. This is most present in elderly people, right? High blood pressure, diabetes, autoimmune disease, right? All of these things are a result in the interruption or inhibition of mitochondrial function. That's why I need to talk about this tonight, right? A big part of your lifestyle and dietary strategy is about protecting and improving your mitochondrial function. Right? There's a few ways that you can tell that you have mitochondrial issues, right? What we call metabolic problems or metabolic syndrome, whatever people want to call it. Now, you may have gas, bloating, constipation, pain, right? Fatigue, the headaches, anxiety, depression. And then you can have things like diabetes, insulin resistance, right? High blood pressure, chronic kidney disease, fatty liver disease, things like this, right? Autoimmune disease, lupus, Guillain-Barré, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, endometriosis, cancer. All of these things relate back to that mitochondrial function. And that's why everything that improves your mitochondrial function pretty much reverses all those other things that I just mentioned. The gut health issues, the obesity, the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the kidney disease, etc. All of those things can be fixed as you improve mitochondrial function. So, for example, if you spend enough time in the wellness space looking for solutions to solve your own problems, right? You probably came across people saying, hey, fasting is really good for helping you to lose weight and reverse diabetes and lower your blood pressure and all these different types of things, right? Fasting because of the autophagy and bringing down insulin and blood sugar levels, that kind of thing. But in particular, the reason why fasting works is because fasting causes your mitochondria to grow larger in size. Your mitochondria do this as an adaptation to the conditions of having a lack of available glucose. And when there's a lack of available glucose, your body will then adapt to prioritizing the metabolizing of fat for energy, right? So basically, as you get deeper into a fast, you pretty much get into a constant state of lipolysis, right? Which is the oxidation of fat. So you have chains of fatty acids, and during lipolysis, those chains of fatty acids gets oxidized, and the bonds binding those fatty acids together get broken. And in the breaking of those bonds, you get this energy, right? This kinetic and thermogenic energy, right? That powers your body. And that's how that whole process works, pretty much. I mean, I can explain it a little bit deeper, but I don't want to get too granular. It's not really necessary. What's interesting is more frequent eating actually causes your mitochondria to be smaller, but more prevalent in size. So the actual shape and size of your mitochondria changes according to the conditions, right? So you can have a lot of small fragments of mitochondria. This is a result of, let's say, a caloric surplus that people like to say. Constant eating over a prolonged period of time that can reduce the size of your mitochondria and cause you to have more fragmented forms of mitochondria spread throughout your cells. And then the fasting, infrequent eating, causes longer, larger mitochondria, right? And this mitochondria is stronger and less susceptible to damage, right? So your mitochondria can also be damaged and broken up, etc., right? So something like intermittent fasting, where essentially you tighten up your eating window. Maybe you tighten up your eating window to 8 hours, 6 hours, or even something like 4 or even 2 hours, right? Or a whole 24 to 36 hours, whatever the case may be. And this, as a result, can cause your mitochondria to be more resilient, more efficient as a result. Right? And one of the benefits of that, of course, is the reduction in insulin levels and the reduction in blood sugar, right? So as your blood sugar and your insulin comes down, if you had high blood pressure as a result of your blood sugar being too high, as your blood sugar comes down, the inflammation comes down as well from your blood sugar, putting the stress on your kidneys, and then your blood pressure comes down as a result. So high blood sugar and high blood pressure are like intrinsically correlated. So when you bring down blood sugar and insulin levels, and also the blood pressure can also come down, and you can get this dilation through the portal vein connected to the kidneys, right? So that can also relieve oxidative stress and inflammation on your kidneys. Right? So even when it comes to the reduction in blood sugar, and that can improve kidney function and reverse insulin resistance, right? Fasting can also help to reverse insulin resistance. And that makes it easier for your kidneys to deal with the outflows of waste products and the retention of electrolytes, right? Too much of a saturation of glucose can stress your cells, right? Because essentially what happens is, as your blood sugar comes up, your body needs to get rid of all that excess blood sugar. It can't just sit and accumulate in your blood, because then it serves as a thickening agent in your blood. It's a massive problem. So your body responds by increasing interstitial fluid, which is the amount of fluid in between your cells, right? So you have intracellular fluid, and then you have the fluid that exists outside your cell, right? Fluid, extracellular fluid. And that fluid, that interstitial fluid, is supposed to flow through your lymphatic system, funneling waste products out of your body that way, and through your urine. Right? So that's one of the adaptive responses. It's a high pressure situation. It causes a lot of inflammation, a lot of oxidative stress as a result, because you have all this excess, and the body doesn't really handle excess very well. You really shouldn't have an excess of anything in your body. So fasting really helps with a lot of that, right? So there's like 4 things: diet to improve mitochondrial function, fasting, herbs, which is basically flooding your body with antioxidants to provide as like a force field around your cells and protective mechanism for your DNA and your mitochondria, and then your physical fitness, your exercise or training strategy, right? So those are like the 4 main things that would improve your mitochondrial health. Right, so I talked about the fasting. Now your diet. Now, of course, you can't perpetually fast. At some point in time, you're going to have to eat. And so what we talk about is calories, and then from downstream from calories is your macros. And macros is the primary thing that I focus on, because we talk about like calorie surpluses and calorie deficits, but there is no such thing as a caloric deficit. It's not really possible to have a caloric deficit, because a calorie is a measure of thermogenic energy expenditure, right? Or just a measure of thermogenic energy, right? So basically, as your body temperature raises, your body burns more calories, right? As you consume or uptake more oxygen, that increases thermogenesis, right? It's just a measure of heat energy. And so your body engages in these metabolic processes that you have no control over, right? Because most of it is parasympathetic. So it runs on autopilot. So the amount of calories you burn is just the amount of calories you burn. You don't really have a whole lot of control over how many calories you burn in a day. I think, like, as far as your caloric burn, you can affect like half of it. The other half is locked in. That's your basal metabolic rate. And then the other half is the half that you kind of have control over. But kind of, but not really. So that the other half is related to like, I guess, non-exercise related activity, right? Or NEAT, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis or something like that. It's called NEAT for short, basically. So when you get up out of your chair and you go to the bathroom to urinate, you burn calories in the process. You can't really avoid doing that, right? Even holding your urine causes you to burn more calories, right? So there's really no way around that. If you engage in 30 minutes of resistance training, you can burn anywhere from 120 to like 204 or 210 calories or something like that within a 30-minute period. And then you got like your walking, right? Your 3, 5, 7, 10,000 steps, whatever the case is. But exercise is not for the purpose of burning calories, right? That's the thing that's very important to understand. It's not really the burning of calories that influences your metabolic health or your mitochondrial function. So basically, before I get into that, I got to double back and talk about food, since we're talking about the macros that are downstream of calories. And that is your carbs, fats, and proteins. Proteins are the building blocks of your cells, right? Your neurotransmitters, your muscle mass, bone mass, hair, skin, nails, organ tissues, enzymes, all that stuff, right? Basically, proteins are meant to build and maintain the infrastructure of your body. Protein is not really supposed to be an energy source. It can be an energy source. It's not really supposed to be an energy source, right? That's the thing. So when people say, oh, I eat protein, so I can have more long-lasting energy throughout the day, that's not really a good idea, because you're not supposed to use protein for energy. And this is very important for people who pursue like a high-fat diet. Like people eat like this high-fat diet, like keto or carnivore or something like that. And they're like, yeah, my diet is just mostly like protein and fat. But lean meats and stuff, so I can really maximize protein intake. And it's like, that's extremely dangerous, right? And if you understand biochemistry, you would know why. Protein is not really meant to be an energy source. In order for your body to use protein as an energy source, you have to catabolize those proteins. You have to break down the protein. Protein has to go through gluconeogenesis, basically taking that protein and converting it into glucose. If your protein intake is being converted into glucose anyway, you might as well just eat carbs. Because you eat carbs and your body takes the carbohydrates and breaks it down into glucose, and you get glucose that way. You eat protein, and if you're using protein for energy, then your body also breaks that down and converts it into glucose to use for energy. So this idea of like, oh, I'm avoiding sugar by cutting out carbs and I'm just going to eat more protein, that doesn't work that way. Your body prioritizes sugar so much that it will convert both protein and fat into glucose. That's how much your body values glucose or sugar. And in fact, like 20 to 25% of your energy on a daily basis is used by your brain. Your brain is a sugar addict, right? Having a lack of sugar can actually inhibit and reduce your mental health and even your ability to learn and engage in rational behavior, right? So you may think of like when people are like, oh, I feel hangry, right? When I don't eat, I feel hangry, I feel frustrated, cranky, moody. Yeah, because your brain is being deprived of glucose, right? Food cravings. People are like, I crave like sugar and salt. Yeah, basically your body's craving electrolytes and glucose, right? Yeah, because you've been depriving yourself of it. Right? So protein is the building blocks. The other two are used for energy, and that's carbohydrates and protein. Carbohydrates is a primary source of energy, and then fats are a backup source of energy. It's like an auxiliary form of energy that your body taps into when there is an absence of available glucose. Okay? I explain this a lot, and it bears repeating, right, in order to understand this whole process that I'm talking about. So basically, and this relates all back to the carnivore and the keto thing, because that's not really scientifically backed either. So you have people who are saying, oh, you don't need carbs, right? Carbs are not essential to the human diet. It's like, well, technically that's true, but I mean, it's kind of like saying, well, you don't need to earn more than $50,000 a year. No, you don't need to, but no one is really looking to deliberately live making less than $50,000 a year on purpose, right? It's not really an optimal lifestyle, right? We'd like to make more if we could. It's the same thing with your diet, right? I'm not a big fan of poverty diets. Some people are they treat their nutrition with this poverty aspect, right? So they're like, no carbs, even though it's the body's primary source of energy. Okay. So then you rely on high protein and high fat. Now, the interesting thing is your mitochondria primarily thrives on things like magnesium, manganese, and B vitamins. Your mitochondria don't really thrive on fat necessarily, right? Scientifically speaking, saturated fat actually negatively impacts your mitochondria, right? So, for example, saturated fat. Saturated fat has, what is it called? I say this word wrong all the time. Palmitate, right? Am I saying that right? Palmitate, or palmatic acid, right? And palmitate basically reduces the mitochondrial function. And there's been like studies that demonstrate like these levels of palmitate, and they'll have one where they test like the cell and the mitochondrial function when it's exposed to this palmitate, and then they'll have another group where they'll have like the exposure to palmitate along with like this protective enzyme, right? And it'll show higher function in that group, etc. Right? And so basically it is already pretty much scientifically confirmed that saturated fat reduces insulin resistance. Insulin resistance basically is mitochondrial dysfunction. It is when your cells and your mitochondria has a difficult time or is unable to take glucose and use it for energy, right? And so that inhibition of glucose uptake results in high blood sugar because of a slow usage of glucose uptake, right? A slow usage of glucose, slow glucose uptake. And then people refer to this as a slow metabolism. That's really what they're referring to. So when you have a diet of like eggs and dairy and meat and all that type of stuff, you're getting a tremendous amount of saturated fat in your diet, okay? And you can actually eat yourself into a magnesium deficiency because saturated fat inhibits magnesium absorption in the intestines. And if you have a magnesium deficiency downstream from a magnesium deficiency, you then have a vitamin D deficiency, right? Because in order for your body to absorb the sun's rays and then convert D25 hydroxy in your liver so that your body can actually use vitamin D, you need magnesium. Your body uses magnesium as like a currency to facilitate the synthesis of that vitamin D in your liver, right? And I've had people where they're like, yeah, I mean, I work outside, I'm in the sun or whatever the case is, I exercise outside. I don't know how I'm vitamin D deficient. I don't know why my blood pressure is high. My blood sugar is high. I get frequent headaches all the time. I sleep poorly. I'm struggling to lose weight and I have a vitamin D deficiency, but I spend a lot of time outside. It's because you're magnesium deficient, right? And they're like, oh, I'm magnesium deficient. How? I get a lot of, I get sunlight, I get protein, I'm working out consistently, I'm getting a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And it's like, oh, okay. So if you're getting a gram of protein per pound of body weight, you're eating a lot of animal products, so you're getting a lot of saturated fat in your diet, right? So basically you're driving yourself deeper into insulin resistance, you're inhibiting magnesium uptake and vitamin D synthesis. So then you can have low testosterone, poor androgen receptors, all types of stuff, right, as a result. So that's scientifically how that works, right? There are certain things that you can use as a hedge against it. Like you can supplement with magnesium. You can supplement with electrolytes in general. So a lot of the most popular keto and carnivore advocates, they're always hawking electrolyte powders and things like that on, they're hawking berberine. It's like, first of all, why are you, as a keto or a carnivore advocate, trying to sell people berberine when berberine is used to suppress or reduce blood sugar? Well, you shouldn't be getting blood sugar spikes if you're mostly eating fat and protein anyway. So why would you need to advertise a product that lowers your blood sugar when you're eating the way that you do, which is this high fat, high protein diet that is already made up of foods that are low on the glycemic index? It's almost like that your diet doesn't do that. All right, so that's a little bit of a media literacy thing where you have a lot of people on the internet lying, saying, oh yeah, high fat, high protein diet, real low carbs will keep your blood sugar down. Maybe in the beginning, but as you eat yourself deeper into insulin resistance, that actually isn't the case. You get more insulin resistant over time, right? And that's the thing they don't tell you. So all of your original weight loss and all of that type of stuff happens up front, and then it gradually backfires as time goes on. They don't really talk about that part very often, right? So what they do is they sell electrolytes and they advocate for extreme fasting as a hedge against the bad dietary advice they give people. But I don't want to make this whole video about that, right? It's just something to know. You've probably experienced this if you've tried a keto diet before. Cramps, dehydration, dark, bubbly urine, low magnesium, low vitamin D, joint pain, etc. Right? So if you've experienced those things, well, that's why. All of those things can be traced back to poor mitochondrial function. So then the case is, well, what can I eat? What should I be eating in order to improve my mitochondrial function? Right? We know, stay away from the saturated fat or minimize the saturated fat. Saturated fat isn't inherently bad, right? It's in coconuts and things like that. It's in your nuts and, your cashews and pistachios and walnuts and things like that in small degrees. So saturated fat it's a dose dependent thing, right? It's okay in small doses. All right. So what should we eat? I made a brief short video and I named 4 things. Those 4 things I believe were watermelon, hemp seeds, grapes, and nutritional yeast. It's a bit of an odd list, but I said it to make a point. Watermelon is... What is that word? I'm blanking on the word. What is that thing that watermelon has in it? It makes the flesh of the watermelon red. What's that thing called? I'm blanking on it. I gotta look it up right quick. It's the antioxidant that makes tomatoes red. What is that called? It's lycopene. There we go. Okay. I'm like, man, I had a brain fart. So lycopene is very protective of mitochondria and your DNA in general, right? Lycopene is amazing. Lycopene pretty much protects all of your vital organs, your eyes and everything like that, brain health, etc. Lycopene is extremely important. And it's very abundant in tomatoes. But people have sensitivities to nightshades. So I'm like, well, I can advocate for tomatoes for people to have more tomatoes in their diet, or I can advocate for a diet that has less negative implications, like watermelon. Watermelon, you can eat more of it, and not only is it a big source of lycopene, but it is also a big source of electrolytes like potassium, magnesium, and an amino acid called citrulline, which is a vasodilator. And that basically increases oxygen uptake in your cells. So not only does the lycopene protect your mitochondria, but also that citrulline increases oxygen uptake. And as you have increased oxygen uptake at the cellular level, that improves insulin sensitivity, right? So then this helps your mitochondrial function increase, your insulin sensitivity increase, oxygen uptake increases, and then your blood pressure comes down and you have better blood flow. And watermelon is a really good food to keep your body hydrated. It's 90% water, right? So essentially it's structured water. So when you eat an abundance of watermelon, especially first thing in the morning, it's a great way of hydrating your body and getting an abundance of electrolytes. So rather than listen to somebody hawking electrolyte powders on the internet, well, you could just say, well, just have more watermelon in your diet. Yeah, so watermelon is also a big source of thiamine, right? And other B vitamins that are extremely important as well for the powering of your mitochondria. Your B vitamins pretty much all work collectively together to optimize the communication back and forth between all the neurotransmitters in your body. Okay? Optimizing hormonal function. Right? So folate, thiamine, biotin, pyridoxine, pantothenic acid, methylcobalamin, which is actually a postbiotic known as B12 that your gut makes on its own. But basically, all of these B vitamins work together to power your nervous system. And powering your nervous system is your diet should be largely geared towards that. So you should have a diet that is abundant in B vitamins, right? So, having a few pounds of watermelon in your day is a great way to start. Okay. And to really demonstrate how important it is to power all of your cells and get those B vitamins, is because if there is a hitch in the communication in your nervous system, that could just have cascading effects throughout your entire body. So an example would be like this. I'll show you what a hitch in your in your nervous system looks like. Tremors. Right? So it could be your hand has more tremors than usual. You can have like shaking or whatever. That's a nervous system issue. If you're lifting a weight and you like have the wobbling, right? That's hitches in the firing of the muscle fibers, right? So the motor neurons, right, throughout the muscle tissue and everything is a lag in the communications and the firing, right? And so if you have 10, 10, 10 firing back and forth, if that process and the frequency slows down, you get more wobbling. If it speeds up and has a much higher frequency, you get this real stability, right? Where it limits the amount of swinging and flinching back and forth. Speech impediments. A lot of verbal speech, the hitches in your speech. It could be that. A lot of people say, well, I'm tired. My speech is a little off. Well, tiredness is basically there's a lack of glucose, there's a lack of glycogen stored up inside the cells, and there's some fatigue going on in your brain. Your brain is lacking the glucose needed in order to optimize your speech patterns, like how my speech patterns are now. Some other streams y'all might have seen me on. Maybe I talk a little slower. I got some hitches. I'm getting a little bit more ums and uhs, that kind of thing. I'm a little tired. That's a hitch in your nervous system. Deeper things can be headaches, stiffness in the neck, anxiety, depression, eye twitches, muscle cramps, right? Muscle spasms, things like that. More severe things, abdominal cramping, right? Numbness and tingling, neuropathy, gout, sharp pains, right? Sciatic nerve pain, that's a common one. All of these are hitches in your nervous system communication. So having more B vitamins in your diet actually helps to fix those issues. It's a combination of B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, and manganese. In particular, those things. So aside from watermelon, and then I mentioned grapes, right? Grapes are a very rich source of resveratrol. Now you can actually get like a full day's worth of resveratrol in like 20 ounces of grapes, right? So that's like basically like 1.25 pounds, like 1 pound and 4 ounces, right? 1.25 pounds of grapes pretty much will give you a full day's worth of resveratrol. Resveratrol is another powerful antioxidant, right? A polyphenol. Right? The lycopene is a carotenoid. That's what it's classified as. But the resveratrol is very beneficial because it helps to create new mitochondria. Specifically, the mitochondria in your blood, right? Grapes are a rich source not only of just that polyphenol, the resveratrol, which is also really good for your eye health, by the way, but also it comes with an abundance of vitamin K, specifically vitamin K1, which converts into vitamin K2 in your gut. Vitamin K2 is a postbiotic produced by your gut microbiome. Right? So you put vitamin K1 in, and then vitamin K2 is then synthesized inside your body. Similar to how, like, vitamin D2, if you take that, it converts into vitamin D3, or sun rays, they get converted into vitamin D3. Specifically, vitamin B25 hydroxy. So there's these conversions that happen in your body. So in addition to the vitamin K1, there's also an abundance of copper. Grapes are an amazing source of copper, and copper is really important for maintaining optimal nerve health. The vitamin K and the copper combined, particularly, really, really important for pretty much reversing any chronic illness, right? If you have an abundance of vitamin C, copper, and vitamin K in your diet, this helps to reverse autoimmune disease, any kind of metabolic disorders, whatever the case may be, right? This can help to reverse asthma. I've had people who used to have asthma, and I put them on a diet plan, and then within 8 to 12 weeks, they don't need their asthma pump or their oxygen tank anymore. It's just gone. They're like, oh, I don't have any breathing problems anymore. What happened? It's the watermelon and the grapes, right? So as you get more healthy mitochondria from that resveratrol, as you get more copper, as you get more vitamin K, and as you get more of that water and vitamin C and glucose, your lungs get hydrated, right? Your body makes more red blood cells, because in order for your body to create more red blood cells, you need iron, copper, vitamin C, magnesium, and what else? I think those are the primary ones. But chlorophyll also is really important for that, and B12, right? And so basically your hemoglobin levels increase, and hemoglobin essentially is a protein. It's a blood protein that is needed for oxygen uptake, right? So that hemoglobin. And as your hemoglobin increases, and this is really important for women, because the ones who are most likely to be anemic are women. So women, it's a really good idea to get an abundance of grapes in your diet. Okay, so if you got breathing problems, grapes. Anemia, grapes. Any type of prostate issues, grapes. Autoimmune disease, grapes. Insulin resistance, diabetes, high blood pressure, grapes. Hypothyroidism, grapes. Hashimoto's, grapes. Basically, any kind of human issue you may have, right? Grapes. I mentioned hemp seeds in that video, right? Hemp seeds, out of all the seeds, is probably like number one on my list. Hemp seeds are absolutely amazing. Hemp seeds are a really, really rich source of omega-3 essential fatty acids and magnesium and manganese. Basically, hemp seeds, for all intents and purposes, are a mitochondria food. It's a food that explicitly and specifically protects and improves mitochondrial function, brain health, brain chemistry, improves insulin sensitivity, gut microbiome, all kinds of stuff. It's also a really good source of copper and zinc. Right, so those hemp seeds, very big deal. Hemp seeds are like a staple in my diet at this point, right? So I pretty much put it in my breakfast. So whether I'm having like a chocolate hemp and flax pudding with sliced bananas, or I'm having an overnight oats, or whatever the case is, that's definitely at the top of the list. Right, the hemp is a big deal. Hemp seeds. I do a pretty significant source, a pretty significant amount of it too. So like on a daily basis, I would have like a quarter cup of it. Right, so that's like 4 tablespoons basically. Right, so we got the watermelon, we got the grapes, and we got hemp, which are pretty much all hemp seeds, which are pretty much all dietary staples for me. And then number 4 on the list that I mentioned was nutritional yeast. Right? And nutritional yeast is also known as nooch, also known as vegan crack. Right? Vegan crack, y'all. To my knowledge, all nutritional yeast pretty much is a fortified food. It's an extremely abundant source of B vitamins and B12. It's basically like a B complex supplement, but in the form of like a seasoning, right? Now, nutritional yeast, yeast is in the name, but it's not a live yeast culture. Okay? So it's not like it's an inactive yeast culture, right? So it doesn't have the same implications as like an actual like live yeast. Right? So it's not scary, but great source of all of your B vitamins. Especially in particularly thiamine, B12, and what's that other one? Flavonoids, right? So really, really, really great to put on things like salads, for example. And if you wanted to add like extra lycopene in your diet, you do tomato sauce with the nutritional yeast. And then you can add other things like paprika, cayenne pepper. You can add some garlic powder. You can add onion or onion powder. You can add turmeric, curry powder, cumin, right? All these other really powerful herbs, right? And use those as seasonings in your salad, right? So you can get additional B vitamins, a variety of different polyphenols, carotenoids, all kind of antioxidants. So yeah, that's really phenomenal for like salads and things. There's other foods that I didn't mention in that short video too, like avocado. Avocado is also another dietary staple. I put that in a lot of diet plans that I make, probably almost all of them. Avocado is a really good source of vitamin E, really good source of monounsaturated fat as well as polyunsaturated fat, which actually help to improve insulin sensitivity. What's interesting is like saturated fat inhibits insulin sensitivity, it reduces insulin sensitivity, and then unsaturated fats, right, improve insulin sensitivity, interestingly enough. Good source of zinc, good source of vitamin K, good source of vitamin E, good source of beta carotene. Beta carotene, which converts into vitamin A in the body, which is very important for eye health, hair, skin, nails, and sexual health, as well as mitochondrial function in indirect ways as well. So really phenomenal. Also a good source of omega-3 essential fatty acids as well. If you're going to have it in a salad, you do sliced avocado, you do the nutritional yeast with a few cups of leafy greens like your spring mix or chopped kale or Swiss chard or spinach or watercress, right? Something like that, arugula. You can have a mix of a variety of these different leafy greens. Sliced cucumber, diced onion and bell pepper, pumpkin seed kernels. Okay. By the way, pumpkin seed kernels is a really good idea to add that to your diet because that is a good source of omega-3 essential fatty acids, magnesium, manganese, and zinc. Also a good source of protein and polyunsaturated fat. Not really particularly related to this video, but pumpkin seed kernels also are good for if you have parasites that you're trying to get rid of in your gut. Parasites hate pumpkin seed kernels, or pumpkin seeds in general. Right? So that's a little bit of a freebie there. So that salad with that diced cucumber is actually really good for mitochondrial health as well. The silica helps to protect your DNA, your mitochondrial health. It's a great way to hydrate your body. Really good source of prebiotic fiber, right? All kinds of stuff, right? Also, cucumber is a great source of citrulline, which also acts as a vasodilator, and cucumber is also very good for kidney health. Right? So anything that aids in kidney health also improves mitochondrial function, because when your kidneys function better, your body has an easier time excreting waste products, and less waste products in circulation in your body decreases the threat to your mitochondria and the structural integrity of your cells. Okay, so everything that I'm naming, basically all of these things are extremely beneficial in your diet. Onions, bell peppers, rich sources of vitamin C, B vitamins, loaded with antioxidants, protecting against viruses, mycotoxins, bacteria, and parasites as well. Okay. So that salad is actually very beneficial. It's a good idea to have too, like as your last meal of the day, especially. There's a lot of other foods that I can get into as well, but I'll leave it there because I want to move and pivot over to fitness, right? Your training strategy. Your exercise, your training strategy. Now, if you are trying to really optimize your metabolic health and mitochondrial function, having a combination of cardio and resistance training that you deploy in this parallel fashion with each other. That's basically expediting the process. So your cardio is more of an aerobic mechanism, and then your resistance training is more anaerobic. Now with the resistance training, basically when you engage in the resistance training, the magic doesn't really happen during the training. It happens when you stop. When you engage in anaerobic training, there's going to be a lack of oxygen, right? And then as you burn through the glycogen that is stored locally inside the muscle tissue, your body is going to be forced to tap into fat for stored energy in order to facilitate the recovery process. So this pushes you into a fasted state. So then your body basically responds by releasing growth hormone, brain-derived neurotropic factor. You get an increase in IGF-1. You get autophagy, right? Which is basically your body breaks down old and damaged cells and clears that out and then replaces it with new cells, copies of the previous cells, right? So it's this regenerative, restorative process that happens after you stop training. And also your mitochondria adapt, right? They grow in size from the resistance training. They have to be thicker, longer powerhouses. right, that are capable of producing more ATP to power the training. The illustration of this is, let's say you are doing a bench press or a deadlift or whatever. Let's say you're doing a deadlift with, say, 225 pounds. It's a standard barbell with 2 plates on each side. And you do a set trying to get as many reps as possible with that barbell. So you do a deadlift touch and go. You're able this week, and you max out at 12 reps. Next week, the following week, you do the same exact thing, same week, but instead of just maxing out at 10 reps, you're hitting 13, 14 reps, maybe even 15. The ability to do those extra reps is in large part to stronger mitochondria, more advanced mitochondria. Of course, in other parts, it's also because you have larger muscle mass as well. So you have more muscle mass, and more muscle mass means more mitochondria. And more mitochondria means more energy production. And more larger mitochondria means even more force production. And when you have more, not only do you get more force production, but you get more force production more times. Right? So that's how that works. So your body hyper responds to the training. One thing that's really important to know is that your body, the primary objective of your body, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, the only thing your body wants to do is to adapt to your life and optimize its conditions in order to improve your survival outcomes. That's all your body wants to do. Your body will make whatever adaptations it has to make in order to keep you alive and increase your survival chances as much as possible. All your body wants to do is survive. And it wants to improve the survival odds as much as possible. It's the primary objective, right, of your body. So your body is very hyper responsive to everything you do. And it is specifically hyper responsive to the things that you do the most consistently. This is the reason why you only really get the most results from the things that you do the most, right? The things that you are the most consistent with, those are the things that you get the most results from. And because you can't really create an adaptation unless those conditions that the adaptation is happening in response to are present. If those conditions are no longer present, the need to create the adaptation disappears. Right, so the consistency puts the conditions in place and keeps the conditions in place that facilitate or provoke the adaptation. Right, that's why the consistency matters. It's because your body's not going to adapt to conditions that are not present. Period. So the anaerobic training, basically your resistance training, high intensity weightlifting, I'm a big fan of, right? All out hard sets to failure, right? Max effort. And the reason why I'm a big fan of a max effort, but max effort for short periods of time, is because the training in that anaerobic activity, it's catabolic, it's volatile, it's very damaging. So you want to keep it to a short period of time. It's violent, it's destructive. So when you do it for very long periods of time, you wear your body out. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with their weightlifting and resistance training is they do it too much and their sessions are too long. You're just doing too much too often. And so you end up having the wrist pain, the elbow pain, the shoulder pain, the lower back pain, the knee pain. You have all these pains. And all of these pains essentially are all metabolic disorders. You're breaking the tissues down, you're breaking the cells down quicker than they can be rebuilt back up. Resistance training is, it's not inherently catabolic, but you can call it that and you're not really wrong. But the reason why it's catabolic is because when you engage in resistance training, that resistance training depletes the stored energy inside the cells, right? Glucose is stored inside the cells in the form of glycogen. And glycogen is then expended and used in the metabolic process to facilitate the training. Now that glycogen is like depleted in the first 20, 30 minutes of your training. So if you keep going beyond that 20, 30 minutes and you're training for 40, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, hour and a half, well, then you're basically digging yourself into debt. You're in an energy debt. Now you say, well, you know, when you run out of glycogen, body just switches to burning fat. No, not really. And I'll tell you why. When you run out of glycogen, that's when the exercise becomes catabolic. Your body can't really metabolize fat very effectively in the middle of intense training, because fat can only really be oxidized to any significant degree in the presence of oxygen. Meaning, you have to stop. You have to stop. If you don't stop, your body's not able to tap into the stored fat. And the catabolism is basically the breakdown of proteins. Your lean mass is getting destroyed. It's getting damaged. When people talk about muscle damage, right, what builds muscle? Time under tension, force production, mechanical force, muscular damage, right? We like the time under tension. We like the mechanical stress. We like the force production. We don't like the muscle damage. We don't like that. We want to limit muscle damage as much as possible. And the reason why is because we don't want to be breaking down and destroying muscle fibers. We don't really want to be doing that, because those muscle fibers have to be grown back. And your body will grow them back. But the thing is that if your resources are all used to build back what you destroyed, well, when does the new muscle mass come in? Because you're just fixing what you broke down previously. I don't really want to just keep fixing and breaking down the same thing over and over, right? I want to make it better. I want to build on top of what already is existing. So if I limit the amount of damage and breakdown that's happening to my muscles, well, then the resources that go back into my muscle will build on top of the integrity that was already there, right? So I want to keep the mechanical tension. I want to apply resistance and time under tension. I want to challenge the muscle. And I want to challenge the muscle to the point where I accumulate a lot of systemic fatigue in my nervous system, specifically related to those joint actions, those motor neurons that pilot that muscle. Because when I stop, my body is going to register that fatigue as a threat, and it's going to reinforce and build new motor neurons, more nerves, more neurotransmitters, more muscle fibers, and then it's going to increase the sarcoplasmic volume in order to create an environment for the myofibrillar fibers to then grow in the middle and expand out. My brain does that. It's a chemical thing. You don't grow muscle during training. You grow muscle when you stop training. Right? If you're always training and you're always training for long periods of time, well, when does the muscle building start? Right? You're always beating up your body and breaking it down. Well, when does the building start? Right? You want to train, but your training shouldn't just be like very destructive very often. That's not good. Right? So there's no shortage, especially of people who come to me and they're really ambitious. And they're like, look, man, I'm training 6-7 days a week. I'm eating a lot of protein. I eat like 400 grams of protein a day. Something crazy. Right? I eat my weight in protein. I eat crazy amounts of protein. I train 7 days a week. I got good muscle mass, but like, I'm still, my body fat's real high and I feel miserable and I'm gassy and bloated all the time. My blood pressure's high. My cholesterol's high. Yeah, because you're constantly inflamed all the time. You live in a very destructive life. You gotta chill. Chill. Recover for once. You know? Just because you can train doesn't mean you should. You can train 7 days a week, but that's just your body training enough for you to continue to go back and train. I don't want to recover just enough to continue training. I want to train to improve. And besides, you can only get but so big. I mean, you can get big to the point you start cutting years off your life, right? The bigger you get, the shorter your life becomes. So you got guys that are like, I want to be huge. It's like, okay, but your life is going to be short, right? There ain't no jacked, huge 90-year-olds running around. That's not how that works, right? The largest human beings, they end up dying at like 45, 55 years old or whatever, or they do like Arnold Schwarzenegger and or Mike Tyson do, and they start having a more plant-based diet, or a C.T. Fletcher or these people, and they start adopting like more of a plant-based diet because they start getting nervous about their health, right? Because they got some bad blood test results and they're in a lot of pain, right? Right? By the way, speaking of like, the keto and the carnivore advocates, big shout out to what's his name? Paul Saladino, where he basically had to confess. He was like, my libido was shot. I was having massive cramps. I felt miserable. I couldn't sleep. I was having heart palpitations. So I caved and I started to add a ton of fruit to my diet. And now I started eating carbs and I feel amazing. And then blood sugar spikes are good, actually. They're good. And I'm like, well, yeah, I could have told you that. Unfortunately, he went and wrote a book bashing carbs and telling people to cut all the fruit out and just eat meat and eggs and whatever. And he had to renege on the whole book. Yes. Okay. Metabolic disorders take a few years to develop. All right. It typically takes at least 5 years to develop a metabolic issue usually, right? 5, 10 years or so. Okay. So give it time. All right. In any case, but I'm glad people are learning and they pivot to more of a plant. They come over to my side with the plant-based diet, right? Because they learn their lesson. Big shout out to Mike Mentor, by the way. He didn't live particularly too long, but he had the right training strategy, but certain other habits that wasn't really conducive to longevity. But the idea of high intensity training and infrequent training is actually a sound philosophy, right? As human beings, we have such an aversion to slavery, but then we end up having this slave relationship to labor in the gym, right? Just working and beating the crap out of ourselves to try to look better. Right? You don't get into the best and most healthiest shape in your life by slaving yourself and beating your body up. It doesn't really particularly work that way. Right? You look great on a magazine cover, right? But when the photo shoot's over and you walk out of the room, you can hear your joints screaming on the way out. So basically, your training session is 20 to 30 minutes. You typically only need about 2 or 3 a week. Right? For women, it can be upwards of like 4, maybe even 5. Depends on how you feel, how advanced you are, and how hard you're pushing each session. Now we pivot over to the aerobic side of things, your cardio. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me to engage in really high intensity resistance training and do really high intensity cardio. It doesn't really make sense to me. Because it's like, well, you've already covered the anaerobic aspect of your training with the resistance training. You need something else to balance out the other side of the ledger, right? Which is the aerobic style of training. It doesn't make sense to crush yourself under weights and then be sprinting and jumping and carrying on. A lot of CrossFitters do that, and that's why they have all of this tape and wraps and stuff all over their body. They look like a mummy lifting weights. They're all wrapped up, suction cups, going constantly getting massages, heating and cooling packs, ice baths. Got to do all of this stuff, pain meds, and drinking electrolytes during the workout. I'm like, you can just not do any of that. You can just stop. Just stop. Why are you wearing tape all over your knees and elbows and you're in pain, it hurts, you can stop. Just stop. Chill. You can stop. You don't have to do that, right? I know it hurts. Let's chill, okay? Cardio should be something like a bike ride, a walk, some hiking, right? Go for distance. You do a 20-30 minute resistance training workout, and then you do an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours of a journey, right? Go for a hike, go through the woods, go for a walk, things like that, right? Do some rock climbing or something like that. Do some boat rowing or whatever. Something where you can breathe and have a conversation while doing it. That's a good judge of, you know, it's an aerobic activity when you can have a conversation while you're doing it. But if you can't talk and your joints are screaming and you feel like you're going to die and pass out, it's not aerobic at that point. It's anaerobic. Your brain is going to make you stop. Your brain is going to be like, all right, that's enough. And then the vomiting and the lightheadedness and the blackout start. Right? It's called a lack of sugar. Okay? Chill. It's not good. And it's not good for your mitochondria either. You actually shave off years of your life and you kill your mitochondria as a result, because that lightheadedness, the blackouts, the nausea, that's a result of your mitochondria and your cells dying off from not having enough glucose and not having the oxygen or the water to be able to sustain their lives. So they're just dying. It's called oxidative stress, okay? Stop. We got like this hardcore culture of like, you gotta push, work hard. No. I've seen a lot of really top level world renowned athletes. They burn themselves out by like 38 years old. It's brutal. CTE, joint pains, knee replacements, hip replacements, all types of stuff. Stop. Stubborn belly fat gain, heart palpitations, anxiety, depression, high cholesterol, kidney disease. Stop. I probably should have titled this stream. I'm actually going to do a stream called Stop. All these are the things you need to stop doing now. Stop. Stop. My lungs been burning. Yes, that's not good. Stop. In any case, when you do stop, your body can then rejuvenate, you can come back and all of that type of stuff. And, you know, but you got to stop for a while, right? If you're going to train yourself and push yourself like that, you should do it very infrequent. Maybe once every other week, maybe once a week, depending on if you're training for something or whatever the case is, right? But take care of yourself, right? Some love and care. Treat yourself with some compassion, okay? If you wouldn't treat your kids like that, don't treat yourself like that, right? Where your kid is like, I can't breathe, my chest hurts and my lungs are burning, and you're like, push, keep going. It's like, you know, you wouldn't do that to your child, right? Probably because, you know, we have this thing called CPS. A government agent just waiting right around the corner to take your kids from you for this abusive behavior. So yeah, treat yourself with some compassion, right? That's how you improve your health. All right, treat yourself with some compassion. We can put the work in, but we don't have to kill ourselves. So now, basically, with the aerobic strategy, basically, this is how you sustain perpetual movement and metabolic activity. And so you sustain the slightly elevated level of oxygen demand, which subtly increases oxygen uptake, right? And this is really good for optimizing fat metabolism. Now, what's interesting is glycogen is stored and maintained locally inside your muscle tissue. Glycogen is also stained locally inside your liver, but your body burns liver glycogen peripherally, right? So you don't work out or train your liver to metabolize fat in your liver. Stored fat and glycogen in your liver is always being metabolized. I'm burning fat in my liver right now. I'm burning glycogen in my liver right now, just from being on the stream talking. The slightly elevated heart rate, right? And so basically, what happens is your liver deploys or converts fat into glucose, dumps it into your bloodstream, and then it gets funneled up towards your brain and your other vital organs and your skeletal muscle tissue. Your body breaks down, metabolizes fat, does the same thing. So there's these resources that go from your liver to your vital organs and muscle tissue. So it's this one-way street. So if you want to maximize fat metabolism, well, basically what you would do is as you deplete the level of glycogen stored inside your liver and you deplete the amount of fat stored inside your liver, your body will then ramp up the fat metabolism or the fat oxidation in your subcutaneous fat and your visceral fat. Visceral fat being the fat that is stored on top of your organs, and subcutaneous fat stored right underneath the skin, right? Visceral fat is the fat that your body prioritizes. So when you reduce the amount of oxidative stress on your body prioritizes oxidizing visceral fat, right? So there's this ramping up of lipolysis around your vital organs. And that really shows up around your midsection. So when you bring down the stress and you improve insulin sensitivity, your waist shrinks, right? And then the belly fat on the surface, it gets a little looser, it gets a little bit jigglier, and then gradually it gets a little thinner, a little softer, until it's just not really there anymore. So you deplete liver fat, visceral fat, subcutaneous fat. And those three basically are getting converted gradually into glucose and sent to your brain, your vital organs, skeletal muscle tissue, bone marrow, etc. Okay. And this is how you lose weight. So with walking, the beautiful thing about the walking is you don't really have to stop in order to metabolize fat, because there's an abundance of oxygen. There's no shortage. There's no shortness of breath. So you're walking, you're moving, and your heart rate is elevated, but not elevated too much to the point where there's a shortage of oxygen. It's very important to understand that in order to metabolize fat or oxidize fat to any significant degree, there has to be an abundance of oxygen. If there's a lack of oxygen, well, then fat metabolism doesn't really happen to any significant degree. People who are morbidly obese or have breathing problems have a very difficult time losing weight because of a lack of oxygen saturation, right? So it's very important to improve oxygen saturation. The aerobic activity, like the walking, actually improves oxygen saturation and increases oxygen uptake, which is the reason why walking is probably, in my opinion, the #1 fat loss exercise. It's the best one you can do. So if you walk for an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours a day, that is essential. Maybe not essential, but close enough. Probably like 2 degrees away from being essential to losing weight. Actually, no, it is essential. I'm taking that back. The walking is essential to reaching your weight loss goal and creating a body transformation. I'm gonna plant my flag on that. That's actually true. It is essential. If you can walk, definitely take the time to walk. If you don't have the physical capability to walk, that's a different story. Then you gotta focus on doing more things with your arms and torso. So that covers the training strategy. Now, touching more on reducing oxidative stress in your body, reducing inflammation, and increasing oxygen uptake. There are herbs, right? I don't really call myself an herbalist, but I'm a very big fan of herbs that do a variety of different things. Herbs in particular, they provide, pound for pound, herbs are like the most abundant source of antioxidants you could possibly have, okay? So you have herbs that increase oxygen uptake. You have herbs that protect your DNA, protect your cells, your mitochondria. They're just protective, period. Okay. You have herbs that are detoxifying, right? So they help flush toxins out of your body through your kidneys and your lymphatic system, etc. Right? You have herbs that are calming, right? They are adaptogens. They bring, if your cortisol and anxiety is through the roof, they bring it down. If you're too low and depressed, they bring it up, right? So they increase dopamine sensitivity, and they reduce anxiety, they reduce cortisol, and they improve serotonin synthesis, right? So you have herbs that do that. You have herbs that improve insulin sensitivity, metabolic health, right? You have herbs that are they fortify and protect your body, like your immune system, but they assist your immune system in destroying things that are harmful to you in a way that your immune system can't do. For example, you have herbs that are antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal, right? They're anti-mycotoxin. Okay, mycotoxins essentially are metabolites or toxins that fungus excrete into your system, right? They poops, fungal poops, right? Spore poops. So these herbs, they do all of these things collectively that aid your health in a variety of different ways. Also, there's herbs that are anti-parasitic. Ones that are anti-parasitic are also antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, etc. Right? And most herbs, typically, they do like 2 or 3 of these things simultaneously, and you can combine them. So, for example, I like to, if I want to improve insulin sensitivity, if I want to have better blood sugar control, I want to have more oxygenation, I want to have more energy, I said oxygen uptake already, right? And I wanted to increase oxygen uptake, would also stimulate fat metabolism. Let's say I wanted to do all those things, all the things I just named. I'm starting to lose count. I would combine green tea or matcha tea and about a pinch or 2 of cayenne pepper. And those 2 things combined are really good for fat loss, oxygenation of your lungs, your cells in general. Really good for digestive health, mood, energy, alertness, right? By basically optimizing nervous system function, right? So those are really good to have, and you can do that 2 or 3 times. Like, let's say you wake up first thing in the morning, 5 or 6 a.m. That's your first dose. A few hours later, maybe like around 9 or 10 o'clock, boom, that's your second dose. And then anywhere around, let's say 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when you start approaching the wall, that would be your third dose. So you can do it like that. It's a good strategy. Then if you need to kind of, when it gets later in the day, that's when you kind of want to switch things up a little bit. Maybe you want to have the stuff that is more like antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. They relax your gut, ease digestion. They help to relax your intestines, hydrate your colon, that kind of thing. That's where you may want to pivot to things like parsley, right? Nettle, basil. That's where you want to pivot to things like ginger, cinnamon, right? Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is like a good, that's like a good nighttime remedy to get really good quality sleep. Right? So I would do like a gram or so of like ashwagandha before bed. So there'd be like a quarter teaspoon of ashwagandha in tea before bed. But like if you have like diverticulitis, you have Crohn's, colitis, you have some form of IBS, you're insulin resistant or whatever the case is, ginger, turmeric, right? So 1 gram of ginger, 1 gram of turmeric, that can be really beneficial there. Nettle tea. I've had really good results with nettle for kidney function, liver function, gut health, digestion, blood sugar control, bacterial or fungal overgrowth, right? Really good with that. Oregano, right? Basil, oregano, phenomenal. Joint pain, gout, right? Nettle is really good for that. Ginger is really good for that. Turmeric, really good for that. Oregano, really good for that, right? So having like different types of teas for different things is really good to combine with meals. Now these herbs, you don't just get to have them in teas, you can also put them in your food. I like to have the herbs and teas in particular because some things are more dose sensitive than others. And so basically if you have them in a form of tea, this reduces the likelihood of getting a dosage that's too high, right? Any given tea like these I mentioned, I would only really do probably upwards of 2 or 3 times a day. But the things that are meant to reduce pain and protect against infections and things like that, I would probably only do those things like twice. I wouldn't do like heavy dosages of these things. Things that provide more energy or fat metabolism, things like that, like the green tea, that's a thing that you can do a few times throughout the day. But the earlier portion of your day, don't do it too close to bedtime. And if you have a caffeine sensitivity, you may want to swap out the green tea for something like moringa. Okay, moringa is very beneficial in the same way. It's not really, but it doesn't give you like that energy the way that the green tea does, because the green tea, it has the caffeine and the EGCG. And so anything that increases oxygen uptake, anything that reduces cortisol and brings up adrenal output, and anything that expedites fat metabolism or fat oxidation typically would give you more alertness and more energy. Right? Anything that's a vasodilator would also give you more energy, but usually the things that act as vasodilators also increase oxygen uptake. Also, if you don't want to do like the green tea or something like that, what you could do is you could actually do lemon or lime juice with like 2 grams of taurine. And if you want to get really spicy with it pre-workout, you can do 3 grams of beta-alanine. And your brain will light up like a Christmas tree. You will learn faster. You will think faster. Your nervous system will just be like lightning speed. It's like fiber optics. Right? It's like 1 terabyte per second internet, like some craziness, right? So yeah, those, things like that. I mean, I can go on and on, right? Oh, by the way, sexual health, reproductive health, that's specifically related to oxygen uptake. Anything that improves oxygen uptake improves libido, regulates hormonal output, etc. Because hormonal balance specifically is directly correlated to the communication of your nervous system and your neurotransmitters that govern them back and forth. So if there's a hitch in the communication between your brain and your gut, up and down through your gut-brain axis, if there's a hitch anywhere in that chain, that's going to result in hormonal disruption. So that can kill your libido, that can just throw things out of whack, right? So optimizing that by increasing oxygen uptake and things like that actually help to rebalance hormones. And then, of course, increasing magnesium in your diet as well. So you can even do things like going back to that water with the lime juice. You can add like magnesium malate and the 2 grams of taurine, and that's actually a really good combination. And supplementing with zinc as well, but that's for another thing. That's not really related to the mitochondria thing, at least not directly. Peripherally, yes, but I really just want to stick on the metabolism thing. So I mentioned the fasting, the training strategy, the food choices, and leveraging herbs and teas, right? Those are the 4 things, right? So I've mentioned a few things and really given some things for you to work with and implement in your own personal life, okay? The final thing that I would leave you with for tonight, okay, is I understand this is a lot of information. You may have questions and things like that. You may need a little bit more coaching support or help. And I do that as well. So there are links in the description of this video. So number one, I have a 12-week mentorship that you can join, and it teaches you step by step what to do, how to structure your diet plan, training, video tutorials for the exercises, recipes, as well as support group and community, the Tribe by Noir community. Right? We got the Fruit Bowl challenge going, the 10K club where, you know, we share our workouts, our long journeys, right? Putting in the 10 and 12 and 14, even 17 and 18,000 steps a day, right? Really putting in the work. So is that community support, as well as my second stream of the week, which is Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, that I have privately for Tribe members. So that's in the 12-week mentorship. So if you want to do something like that, that sounds good. There's a link to that in the description. If you just want to book a call with me, you get to have a full 60-minute long call with me. And we talk about whatever your issues may be, the steps that you should take to fix your problems, etc. Right? So you can put yourself right on my schedule and pick whatever day and time that works best for you. And we meet up on a Google Meet call. Right? So we got a full 60 minutes to talk about it. I also do personal coaching, right? Personal coaching, you get a custom diet plan, custom training plan, weekly coaching calls, and daily coaching support, as well as access to the member support group, right? So I'm very hands-on with everybody. I want to make sure that everybody's doing well. Okay. And then you can also join my free newsletter to get updates on when I'm going live, like tonight, or when I post videos in general to the YouTube channel, as well as other helpful advice and things like that, recipes, etc. All right, so, you know, plenty of options to choose from. All the links are in the description box below. Appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. I'm not gonna hold y'all for too long all night. But before I do, I'm going to pick a few questions. I'm not going to keep y'all here too late because it was going on 10 o'clock, right? So I'll be responsible with my time. So let me scroll up. Let's see.